Yo, and Scooby say, you know the Scooby Shaggy in the house. Wow, wow, wow.
Hello, and welcome back to Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, give it a rewatch, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back.
You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, What?
What am I watching?
Why this?
What is
What?
this?
Why?
Why
this film?
And I'm joined today by James. Hello.
Hello there. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Surviving, I guess.
Yeah, that's the word for it these days. I am so excited because you have chosen 2002's live-action Scooby Doo movie, which I genuinely have been, waiting to do for, years. So the IMDb breakdown... Oh, God, what is that word? Acrimonious. There we go. After an acrimonious breakup, the Mystery Inc. gang are individually brought to an island resort to investigate strange goings-on. So, why this film? What's your relationship with it?
If I'm honest, it wasn't my first film. I was going to go for the second Pokemon movie, but
Nice.
I know you didn't have a good time with the third Pokemon movie, so I figured, let's try and find something a bit different.
Oh, that's very sweet.
Well, what can I say? And had a lot of ideas, but for some reason Scooby-Doo stuck out in my mind. I remember my mum buying it from Asda. It had that green video case, and I would just watch it on repeat, and there was just something about it I really dug, and thought, oh, this would be interesting to revisit.
This was the first movie that I ever bought with my own money. It was from W.H. Smith, randomly, and the DVD case was really weird. It folded over, and then it had a sort of clip on the side instead of being like a normal, just almost book-like DVD case. And it cost £7, and I bought it with my own money from W.H. Smith, and obviously I still have it to this day. It's the first movie I ever bought properly, and I genuinely love it so much. I don't even know that I'm going to be able to articulate it. It shouldn't, I'm so baffled by it. It shouldn't work, and it shouldn't be good, and everything that we loved about Scooby-Doo is thrown away, and they just do their own thing. I think the main thing about what it is an absolute time capsule of the very early 2000s, and you don't get them like this anymore.
No, it is so early 2000s, from the soundtrack with Acast and Simple Plan and All Stars, that British group, which was very random,
So
to stopping the film so Shaggy and Scooby can ride on quad bikes.
literally.
You're right, it's a very big time capsule.
It really is, and it didn't need to be. I don't know, I think this is the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie, possibly even the first full-length cinematic adventure that the gang ever had, and they made such bizarre choices that I am 100% here for. The worst hated character in Scooby-Doo is Scrappy-Doo. Let's make him the primary antagonist. What? If I saw that on paper and I was in a boardroom for this movie, I would have been like, what the fucking hell do you think you're doing? We want this to be successful. What the hell kind of choice is that? And yet you watch it and you're like, yeah, makes complete sense. I love it. Great ideas there.
That one bit, that one choice is how you know this has been made by someone who loves Scooby-Doo. It's someone who's taken the most hated element, universally despised, and just thought, let's villainize him. Let's make him the punching bag. Let's make everyone feel what we felt.
Honestly, and they pull it off, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe many people are disagreeing right now, shouting on the train, what the hell? But I completely agree. I think it was made by someone that has a real passion for the original series, and obviously one of the main things as well. The whole thing of Scooby Doo is that it's a man in the mask. It's a man in the mask. It's always a man in the mask. There are real monsters in this movie. Like, it's not just a man in a mask. There's like a couple men in masks, but like primarily there are actual real life monsters in this movie. I can't imagine coming to it as someone that maybe grew up with it in the 70s and then were taking their kids to see this live action version and then watching it and being met with this sort of like, no, there are actual real life monsters in this movie. I can't imagine what they must have felt. I thought it was fucking awesome.
It is just wonderful. And funny you say about people taking their kids to see it, because according to writer James Gunn, you know, the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy wrote this. He said that in 2017 that the original cut was R-rated. It was meant to be. Yes, that it's been noted the original script had Shaggy was explicitly a stoner.
Amazing.
Velma and Daphne were going to have a side relationship.
I love it.
And it's the fact that they got the cut and decided, no, let's cut it down and let's present it for kids. And one bit which blew my mind, they used CGI to cover cleavage.
That's bizarre. That's so interesting. Now you've said it. You know when kids can sort of tell that something's like not for them?
Yes.
There must have been little elements of that. It did feel more than teenage. The teenage media that we were being fed back in the early 2000s was not really like this. And I think it even though it's cheesy and even though it's ridiculous, there were elements that felt a lot more mature than you'd have perhaps thought there would be. So the fact that it was originally R-rated actually makes a lot of sense. I can kind of feel it. I can't necessarily show you where it's got that, but I can definitely feel that it was a much more mature. I mean, classic jokes I didn't get when I was 11, 12 when I first watched this, where you know, Thingy walks up and she's like, my name's Mary Jane, and he's like, that is like my favorite name. And it wasn't until years later that I was like, oh, because weed is known as Mary Jane. There it is, I get it now. I was gonna say Matthew Lillard, but every single person in this movie is perfectly cast, in my opinion.
I think the main four are perfect. I agree, they're perfect. They fit so well into the roles, especially Matthew Lillard. He's one of those translations from original source material to big screen live action, which just feels like they've walked out and decided, yeah, I'm continuing this on. It feels so perfect. I maybe would say Rowan Atkinson feels like he's from another movie, but that's just me. No,
that's so interesting. I want to dive into that because this is the thing. Little parts of my brain are like, this isn't right, but because I love bad tone, I love mixed things in movies. I love it when things are kind of fucked up. Rowan Atkinson, I'd completely forgotten he was in this movie. I watched it and he steps out and he's like, Mystery Inc. And I was like, oh my god, it's Rowan Atkinson. What are you doing in this movie? And then I was watching him and I was like, is it because he was Mr. Bean and he's like a recognised face? Is he here to get the British audience on board? Is he here because he was like in America at the time? Like, why were they like, we need someone to be the human embodiment of Scrappy Doo? Spoilers for the 2002 Scooby Doo movie here. And they just like, I know exactly what you're saying, but I love it so much. I love the bizarreness, like, because he's funny without even trying, and I don't think he's even phoning in this movie. It doesn't feel like he's giving a half-assed performance. He's there, but it is like, what? And I think that just adds to why I love it, because it's like, what the fuck? And like, Isla Fisher is so clearly like almost Daphne. Like she easily could have been up there. It's almost like she was in the running to become Daphne, and then they gave it to Sarah Michelle and was like, okay, well, you can still be in the movie, but we'll like change the color of your hair. And like, this is the thing as well, because she obviously plays Mary Jane, who is essentially what becomes Shaggy's love interest. And I was really watching it this time round, something that I hadn't really clocked before. They make a point to give every Mystery Inc. character a love interest. And usually I hate that shit, but because it's very much side plots and it allows for like exposition to come out and like it's cute and it's fun, again, I'm cool with it. I'm like, yeah, love it. Velma can have that hot guy, whatever.
Did you catch his name by any chance?
Nope, no idea what he's called.
According to the credits, he's listed as Velma's friend.
I love it. I love it. They didn't give a shit. They didn't care. They were just like, well, obviously Fred and Daphne will get together. We'll bring in a sidekick for Thingy, and then we'll get a Velma boyfriend. Like, it'll be fine. It'll just be some randomer. Just call him Velma's boyfriend. It doesn't even matter.
In a way, the way Velma's friend is treated is kind of like when regular films have just a woman come in to be just a love interest, and they're not even that interested in him.
He could be replaced by a lamp.
Exactly.
Which is the go-to sort of thing for when women are just there to be objects. And yeah, he's just there to have exposition told to us and to sort of like be with Velma at the end. And it's like, cute, love it, nice.
And wear his
right.
baseball shirts.
Yep. In the middle of the island that they go to, this is why it's so 2000s and it'll never get made today. Just the whole vibe about it. It's like a sort of, I don't even know if it's problematic. It must be somehow, because it's just this sort of like voodoo, Hawaii, just sort of like hot beach themed place where everyone's wearing such bright clothing, and it's just sort of themed. Like, what is the theme? That sort of like Tika, like.
Yeah, maybe a mix of tiki and I think it's meant to be a resort for college students to get away, like a spring break kind of thing.
I guess, yeah.
But with more disembodied heads and more of a macabre sense of humour.
Yeah, which is fucking cool. Like, I genuinely totally go there. Like, it looks so much fun. And I really love the aesthetic of it, and I think it just adds to the whole tone that they were going for. To set it in this place is so clever. And I love how their outfits, they always stick with their sort of colour scheme, but they're able to not just wear the same outfit every day. And I just really love the sort of way they went about the wardrobes for the different characters, and it was just really enjoyable to watch. And we got to see them out of their normal stuff as well, and it's just really fun.
Yeah, they got to mix and match, but even when whether Daphne's wearing that dress or that full-on catsuit, she's still retaining her regular colour scheme.
And it still like
feels very much
Daphne.
Her. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's so good. Oh man. I got very few notes. It's mainly like soundtrack slaps, Hawaii theme, yes, cast perfect, fucking fight me.
I'd agree about the soundtrack slapping. That cover they do of Scooby Doo over the climax, it still bangs to this day.
Oh my god, it slaps so hard.
So good they did it in the sequel as well.
I have not seen the sequel in a very long time. I know that Seth Green is in it, and I think he's the main villain, which I am cool with. But I just remember it being a bit more pandering to, like, I don't know, shit. I don't know, I don't remember. Is it as good?
Honestly, when I was growing up, I thought, oh, the second one's better because it's got the original monsters and that. But having
Okay.
rewatched it recently, I think the first one I prefer the first one more because it feels very self-referential and meta in a way that Phil Lord and Chris Miller would popularize with the Jump Street films and the Lego Movie. And you're right, the second film is pandering a bit with let's put all these original monsters in and work a plot around it. And Mystery Inc. are big, and it doesn't have that same wit. They clearly knew ahead of time this is being geared towards a more child-friendly audience, and they worked it as such.
Child-friendly, and yeah, all I really remember is when they put Velma in that, like, tight cat suit, because she's, like, going on a date or something. Really,
Who's
just
your mama?
really... just really, like, unnecessary, bizarre. When she was able to sort of keep her, like, long knee-high socks in the first one pretty much the entire way through. And you know what's really good about the first one? Like, it's genuinely got, like, arcs and themes and plants and payoffs. There's whole running things of, like, Velma is the brains, but she doesn't feel appreciated, and then that comes to play. Like, Daphne's got her whole like Buffy the Vampire Slayer subplot where she like learns karate, which like is so late 90s feminism, but like I'm here for it. Like, feminism is feminism at the end of the day.
It does work. Daphne's a lot more of a proactive character through that.
Exactly. And like, if you made the movie today, you would want to do more with it. But for back then, like, it was enough of a step that got me really engaged. And especially with the casting of Sarah Michelle Gellar at the time, like slap bang in the middle of her Buffy height, was very clever, because you're inevitably going to be like, Daphne is a badass. When, yeah, in the original series, she is just the damsel in distress because she's the hot one or whatever. And all of the sort of flaws that the characters had, like Fred being incredibly vain and self-centered, and he never stops doing that because that's who he is, but it doesn't make him a bad person, and they all learn and grow, and like you wouldn't think it would happen in this like bizarre movie, but it does, and you don't really see such good themes in such casual popcorn movies anymore. I don't think, anyway.
No, you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, they stay true to the characters, but they allow them to grow and become a bit more than what we've seen in the cartoons which have aired since the late 60s. It's very much from James Gunn's script. It's clear that he gets who they are. And when Fred learns to step back a bit and allow Velma to actually come forward and get the respect she deserves, to feel appreciated for a role, it feels like a step that's well earned. It's not just, let's chuck in this last minute bit of realization. It's an actual arc that works.
Full on through line. It's just so much fun. It like movies aren't allowed to just be like fun anymore, and like to the point where I was like, I'm gonna go watch the live action Scooby Doo movie. Is anyone interested? My mum was like, yeah, I'll sit in on that, because it's just fun, and like you can just watch it and have a good time, and you really do. Like, I don't find it confusing, I don't find it offensive. It's just really cute and aesthetically pleasing and funny. Like, I quote it to this day. Anytime someone says sacrifice in any context, I respond with a reverse, like without fail, like all the time. And just to pop back to the soundtrack again, like, mate, I mean, it is the whitest thing in the world, but I love that like Scooby Doo rap over the credits, the like bow wow wow da, da, da. Like, I can't
that one.
even. Yeah, like the like terrible rap that they do over the credits, and I just love it. It is so bad, but I love it so much. Do you remember in January 2019 when Shaggy's power became a massive meme? And it was all of those memes.
I'm so glad you brought this up. It was Wonderful
It,
to see Shaggy stylized as some god Super Saiyan like that. And to see Freddie Prinze Jr. just subtitles going over him saying, I remember when Shaggy came into work and announced he killed God.
Yeah, it's like, so it basically, for those of you that weren't on the internet at that time, because it was only like a 48-hour thing, really, it appeared out of nowhere, flooded the internet, and then left again. And I think it was a sort of rip-off of Chuck Norris-y type stuff that had come before anyway, but it was screenshots from the live-action Scooby-Doo cast interviews where they were just talking about Shaggy having this immense power and, like, I can't do any of them justice, but it was just such a specifically weird meme at a specifically weird time to be on the internet. And it just, it really ties into this whole vibe that this movie is giving off, that people were like, yeah, that's a thing. I can accept that as a thing.
There's no rhyme to or reason to the memes, like how they pop up or how long they'll last for, but it's entertaining to see something so random just popularized and warped to such a degree.
So good. So Mike Myers was apparently meant to originally play Shaggy. How do you feel about that?
I presume this was around the time of Austin Powers hitting it big.
And I think Shrek had just happened as well.
Oh, okay. So, I'm not sure. I think Mike Myers might have been a bit more showy with the role than Matthew Lillard were. And what I like about Lillard is that he really embraces the role without putting it across as too cartoony. And
yeah, that's such a good way of describing it.
With him, the CG effects, I don't necessarily believe Scooby-Doo's there, but Matthew Lillard makes it so convincing that he's acting opposite a Great Dane that barely talks English that I can believe it through that.
That's such a good point. I'd not even considered that. A lot of what brings Scooby-Doo to life is Matthew Lillard's performance. It's held up, you know, as much as anything's held up from that time. And actually it's held up a lot more than, like, the troll in the bathroom from the Philosopher's Stone. The CGI of Scooby-Doo. Where, like,
fair enough.
Troll in the bathroom could have been taken from the, like, PlayStation 1 game of Harry Potter and put into the movie. Whereas Scooby-Doo is, like, more... It's not quite Gollum, but it's, like, you know... I was never like, ugh, at any point watching him, other than like when you're meant to be.
I'll agree about that, but I was less than convinced with the monsters coming out of people that were allergic to sunlight.
That's fair. I think the majority of the budget was set aside for Scooby-Doo, and then everything else, which seems bizarre, doesn't it, for them to be like, we're going to go out of our way to make it harder and more expensive to ensure that we have like real live monsters made from CGI instead of men in suits, which is what it's meant to be, which would have cheapened the costs of our movie like so much. Really bizarre. I've just read that Tim Curry was offered the role of Mondavarius and he turned it down when he heard that it was Scrappy Doo. Which, like, you can understand. And it wouldn't have been right. Scrappy Doo is Rowan Atkinson. Scrappy Doo is the sort of underdog, silly, goofy, sort of, like, if Scrappy Doo was a person, and this isn't an insult towards Rowan Atkinson, but Scrappy Doo would... Tim Curry's too, like, evil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, Tim, I get what you mean. Rowan Atkinson, we know him more from Mr. Bean, and it's a more of a role to put you at ease because he's such a comedic figure that you can laugh at, whereas Tim Curry, he can be the figure you love to spend time with, or he can be, yes, creepy and evil, and he does it very well, and I'm always up for more Tim Curry.
Please.
But I think you made a good point that if Tim Curry had been in the role, you'd be a lot more like, yep, he's the villain.
This is the thing, I was just going to say that. If Tim Curry had stepped out onto the dock and greeted Mystery Inc., the entire audience would have gone, oh, Mondavarius is the villain. Whereas they do manage to bring out some sort of mystery because they're like, oh, is it the creepy voodoo man on the beach? Or like, maybe he's the red herring, so it could be him. Is it the like scary bald man and his like wrestler friend? You're like, understandable. And then obviously Mondavarius is obviously a suspect, but because it's Rowan Atkinson, you're like, no, he bought them here. Like, it can't be. Look at his little fucking face. It's so cute. If it was Tim Curry, you'd be like, yeah, it's Mondavarius. I don't know how or why, but it is because it's Tim Curry. Like, what do you expect? So I think it would have sort of upset the movie's tone and vibe to have as you say, much as I want Tim Curry injected into my veins. I don't think it would have worked here. And yeah.
No, I think you're right. It's like when Mondavarius is captured by that monster, you think he's genuinely in danger. And when he's revealed to be the big bad later, it's like, oh, of course. Whereas if Tim Curry was captured, you'd think, oh, I wonder what's actually going on here.
Yeah,
you'd be a lot more
like,
wise to what's going on.
whatever, man. Like, clearly that's fucking the main villain of this movie because it's fucking Tim Curry. Like, what do you want?
Exactly.
God, what to say? Like, I almost wish we had differing opinions just so I could, like, really try and justify, or you could really try and justify what it is about this movie that we find so enjoyable, even 10, 20 years later.
If you want differing, how about this? I understand the original series went for Fred and Daphne to be together, but in this film, I felt more geared towards hoping Fred and Velma would be together as a way.
That's interesting.
The way they grew together off one another, and the way their arcs intersected, and that moment when they're like in close proximity talking to each other about the plan with the giant skull head. I just felt more into them two as a couple, whereas by the end of it, before Fred and Daphne kiss, they have that one glance in there.
It's so true. They don't set up that relationship other than the fact that it's real life couple Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar whatsoever. People just assume because it's like the hot people get together. I mean, we all know the one true pairing of Scooby Doo is Velma and Daphne. Like, fundamentally, that is the one true romance in the Scooby Doo.
I was going to go
gang.
with Shaggy and Scooby.
And obviously Shaggy and Scooby. But, yeah, if you have to play it straight, literally, for the mainstream audience, then, yeah, you make I think it would have caused an absolute uproar.
But to be fair, this was a film where they were going to go for Shaggy's an outright stoner, and Velma and Daphne were going to have a side relationship, so they weren't exactly pandering to the audiences from the word go.
To the mainstream. It's very true, but then in which case they should have gone full on with the Velma and Daphne relationship, because we all know
definitely.
that's the one true pairing of true love. But yeah, you make a good point. Like, they really do set up Fred and Velma's relationship a lot more, but then it is nice as well to have that as a form of platonic respect and understanding and growing as people, where you don't then have to like get in each other's pants and not undermine everything you've just learned, but it overshadows it, because then you start applying cinematic narratives of like, oh well, like, you know, it's fine, we can stop learning now, we've done the one hard bit and now we're together, so like, who cares? Whereas by keeping them apart, it's like, and now we will continue to grow and learn as people. I'm sure that happens in Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. I'm sure that Fred and Velma's relationship of growing and learning as people continues very strongly.
Honestly, I what time is it now? I finished it about hour and a half ago, and I can't think if Fred and Velma had interactions apart from one moment where she's worrying about whether Seth Green loves her or something.
God damn it. This is the thing, like, there is a couple of moments in this movie that I'm like, Jesus Christ, as a modern audience member. But even they are meant to be dumb. Like, when Fred turns to Velma and says, dorky chicks like you turn me on too. Like, you are meant to be like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, that's the whole point of it. But, yeah, there's... I'm really trying to think if there was anything that, like, upset me. But I don't think there was. They're quite...
I can't say I'm comfortable with the one person of colour being relegated to that voodoo practitioner stereotype.
It is bizarre that wherever we may be, we're clearly not in Europe or like anywhere where on screen especially you predominantly have white people. We are clearly in a place where you would think a lot more non-white people would be living. And yet, yeah, there's only one black character in the entire movie. I think the wrestler is Latino. I believe
so, but
I don't want to say, but
no. To be fair, he's covered with a mask.
Yeah. Yes, I had not realised that. One black person, and like they could have easily made a member of the Mystery Inc. gang black. Very easily.
Very true.
And they chose not to. And
yeah, that's a good point. If they're already changing things up, then why not allow for more diversity within the main group?
I mean, especially, and it's not an excuse at all. Yes, you're right. Back in 2002, I don't think it was a priority, and I say that in the like most cold way because, you know, unfortunately at the moment I think we do have to actively think and try harder,
of course,
because it doesn't unfortunately naturally come. And if your entire studio and director and writer and crew are white, chances are no one's gonna be there to be like, hey, maybe we should like not cast a white person, let's go crazy. And then what? Fan 4 Stick that came out in 2015 dominated just by the fact that they were like, hey, he's not white, and everyone was like, wait, what? I don't understand. Can we go back on that? I don't get how it works. How can it? And it's like, so they're black. That's what's happening. They're a black person. Let's talk about the movie. And they're like, no, sorry, can we go back to how that person's not white? And yeah, it was ghastly. And that's... No,
I mean, the film centered around beings with stretching powers, being on fire, and oh no, it's one person not being white, which is the thing they can't wrap their heads around. The caucasity.
It is literally so baffling that in the amount of pieces of media that are like, have dragons and aliens, and you have one like black person in there and people are like, this doesn't make sense historically, and you're like, oh, but the dragons do. Completely ridiculous. The same thing happened when we tried to have a female Doctor Who. People were like, but I thought the Doctor was a man. The Doctor's an alien. The Doctor can be a Hoover if you want him to be. That
would fit with the name well. Dr. Hoover.
Exactly. Doctor could literally be a houseplant. Like, he's fucking alien. She is now a fucking alien. And she's brilliant. Stan a female Doctor Who. But yeah. God, what else is there to say? It's just so fucking good. Problems.
Oh, when they're all swapping bodies and Fred's first reaction is, I can look at myself naked.
Yeah, I think that as well was like, that's where you can really see that original R-rated script coming into play as well. When I'm just really appreciate all the actors playing each other and like making comments like, Shaggy's like, Daphne, what's wrong with you? Don't you ever eat? No, she probably doesn't, because she's a woman in 2002.
Of course Shaggy would focus on food.
But also I think it does make a really good point that like, yeah, the reason a lot of these actresses look this way is because they don't eat. Like, even as a kid I was like, oh, it's deep. he's making a point when it's just meant to be a throwaway joke because Shaggy likes eating food, but like he doesn't say that about anyone else. And the joke is meant to be that, yeah, like women are anorexic because society tells them to be, and it's dangerous and kills. See, Scooby Doo can be deep.
That is, I never even cottoned on to that, but
Yeah.
I suppose I'm male, so I'm gonna miss things like that.
And of course it does affect males as well, but I guess if you've not been fed it your entire life, especially, it's not going to be the first thing that you instantly think of. But yeah, see, learning and growing, Scooby Doo, it's for everyone. But yeah, I think, God, but Sarah Michelle Gellar does such a good acting as Fred, but it's horrible when he's like, and then he like looks down at his own boobs, and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
stop doing that. That's nasty.
That's not your body. Ugh.
Like, yeah, I think, yeah, it's so interesting because when you go back to things and you're clouded by how much you love it, that even though you can pull out things that are problematic, you still want to forgive them because you just love it so much, and you can just excuse it, which is dangerous.
But the thing is, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You can love something and acknowledge it has problems, and there are areas where it needs to be better.
I think so, and I think also it's about not erasing things as well. Like if, not that I think anyone's actively trying to erase this live-action Scooby-Doo 2002 movie from history, but yeah, just as you say, acknowledging, being like, that was shitty. Let's be better in future. It's when it keeps happening that it's annoying.
When nothing's been learned.
Yeah. God, the soundtrack fucking slaps. Like, it's so good.
It does hold up, I must admit.
It's just so fun. Like, when they've met up again, and they're all like, I've got this, we learned this, we found this out. And then they run through the forest back to the bar to you cannot run and you cannot hide, and you're just like, yeah, go Scooby Doo. It's so good. Oh, it's just so much fun. Honestly, email in, post on my Instagram, post on my Twitter if you fucking hate the live action Scooby Doo 2002 movie. I will come for you, but I want to know why. What is wrong with it? Nothing.
I must admit, the elongated fart humour I'm not ready for me.
That's a good point. Especially as a child, I really hated. I was so sensitive to toilet humour, and to this day, that was the bit that I decided to go and get another pen that worked. I was like, I'll leave the room. So I didn't even watch it properly this time round, which is why I've forgotten about it, because I was just like, oh no, it's this bit. I leave the room at this bit. It is mercifully short, and it's not throughout the whole movie.
No, that's true.
There's a segment with Scooby and Shaggy, and then they sort of do a coda on it a couple of minutes later, and I think as far as gross out toilet humor, that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, it's not like every 5 minutes someone's been covered in poo or someone's...
Exactly.
I think the sequel does do more gross... It spreads out the gross out humour a bit. But it's probably no more than what's in this film, I'd say.
Well, I don't know, and it feels very much like they were like, shit, this is for kids, what do kids like? I don't know, put in a fart joke. And they were like, well, we've sort of finished most of the script now. Why don't we just put in a fart joke that lasts 5 minutes, do that? And that's kind of what they did, and it felt like they were just like, shit, this is for kids, quick, and jammed it in. Whereas the second one, because it was more from the set word go, that they were like, this is for kids, they were like, cool, kids need shit jokes all the way through.
That makes sense, because when this place where Shaggy and Scooby have that fart off in is where the same set as that awful video Fred and Velma are watching in the brainwashing room, that parody of teachers showing these videos of adults trying to be down with the kids and
do you mean that incredible video?
Oh yeah,
where it's
that word, ding!
Keeping it real. And this is the thing as well, it used that sort of language that wasn't even, I mean, the early 2000s was a funny time. Like, Playboy was all over everybody's pencil cases, and High School Musical was, like, enormous. But I guess it was coming more out of the 90s, where that sort of hip language was more used, and when it was being written, perhaps they hadn't thought that with the new millennium we would eradicate that and bring in our own new languages. And because of that, it makes it sort of weirdly dated, and because of that, it makes it, other than the very obvious, you can look at this movie and be like, that is early 2000s, the movie itself is kind of not in time. Like, it's, because you got these characters from the 60s that are like acting like no one really uses a mobile phone, no one really like uses technology that dates it at all. There's no like weird fax machines that are used. The language could be a mixture from the sort of 60s through to the 90s, with the sort of groovy, hip, radical, cool, disco. Same with the costumes. They went more with like colour rather than like time. And because of that, 1 minute she's in a 60s go-go boots, then she's in like a 90s cat suit, and I think that's why it's cool as well. And I think that's where the second one fails, because it doesn't set itself by going to and setting itself in one place. I think it does itself a service. Whereas in the sequel, by setting it just in Coolsville, there's no like aesthetic there other than like, oh, it's Coolsville, like Gotham.
No, that's a good point, because in the sequel they have their own Mystery Inc. Hideout, their own headquarters, and they've got a TV which comes out of the floor, and it's all this stuff which feels a lot more of the time. But with Scooby Doo, it's one of those things which you feel they can bring out a new version for every generation. They don't have to change who the characters are or what they dress as, and it still fits because they are recognizable. And there's always a different version, in the same way there is of Winnie the Pooh or the Muppets. Yeah,
it's so true. Like, it is weirdly timeless, despite looking very much like the. I mean, the latest Scooby Doo movie came out a week ago.
Not for us Brits.
No, I'm not sure. I haven't watched it because, I don't think it's available in England. But in America, Scoob! Came out with none of the like proper animation voice cast. They replaced the original voice cast with, well, not the original voice cast, but the normal voice cast with a bunch of celebrities that apparently do a very mediocre job. And it was shit, apparently. But
that sucks.
I think that's what they said about Scooby Doo 2002 as well. So what do they know?
You never know. In 10 years, 18 years, it might be reappraised, and might be a load of people come out and say, actually, this is my Scooby Doo. This is what I love of the character.
Yeah, you'll scroll down the Wikipedia page and it'll say like, this has been put in the National Film Archives as a film of historical importance and great influence. Look at him, look at his little CGI face. It's good, it's great, I love it. Oh yeah, you're right, there he is, Velma's friend. I can bang on about this movie all day. I don't know what else there is to say about it. I'm blown away that it was James Gunn that wrote the screenplay. Like, no wonder it's so fucking good.
And after this, he had his choice of what to do next. They offered him a load more Hanna-Barbera properties, and he decided to go for Dawn of the Dead.
Nice.
Which says about what he wants to do, and it's paid off for him, so good on him.
I love it. I love on the poster they don't put the actors' names, they put the characters' names because these are people to a lot of people.
They feel real to us, no matter who's playing them.
They really do, and they are so perfectly cast. God, I love it so much. Any closing thoughts on live action Scooby Doo?
I think this is one of the best examples of what I've noticed a lot of adaptations do, where the opening is, this is what you loved about the original stuff, and we're doing it with a proper budget to it, and then it'll do a time jump or for however long, and it'll transition over to we're having these characters do something different in a different location. This is more these characters in a different scenario than you're accustomed to.
Yeah.
And it works well.
It does work really well. What else does that?
The Dora the Explorer movie from recently did that.
I really want to see that. Like, I kept
It's
seeing it
great.
advertised, and I was like, that looks fucking amazing. Like, I'm not even
It
gonna
is.
lie, lads. Like, that looks so good. That looks like proper, like, 1999 Mummy vibes.
I think you'd love it. It's definitely, it's like actually like Scooby Doo, where it's very pokes fun at itself, but doing it through a loving way.
Yeah.
Like, because you're aware of Dora the Explorer and how she's always looking at the camera and going, "Can you say insert Spanish word?" And she does that when she's a little girl, and the parents are like, "What's she looking at?" It's okay, she'll grow out of it.
It's so good. I have to watch this.
It's worth it.
Oh, man. Yeah, it just looks so much fun.
It's very fun. I think you'll love it.
Yay! There you go. Recommendation for the Dora the Explorer movie. And recommendations for the Scooby-Doo 2002 movie. Like,
Of course.
I was obsessed with this movie. I was obsessed with it. I tried to get my... They didn't really do merchandise back then in the same way that they do now. So there wasn't really much to get a hold of, but anything that I could... A lot of stuff came in cereal packets. I would, like, hoard all of that. I was obsessed with Daphne because I loved Buffy at the time. I still love Buffy.
It still holds up. Mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm just looking at the poster just like, Pamela Anderson's in this movie. Like, what?
It's interesting. The poster is from the opening bit as well. It doesn't give you a hint as what the rest of the film's going to be once you're through that.
Yeah.
So it's a nice little guessing game if you're not accustomed to what the film's about.
So good. So clever. I'm so happy because films are so arduous and time consuming and expensive, and there are so many films that are made every year that no one ever gets to see because of whatever reason. I'm just so happy that this got greenlit and bought all the way through to the end and put out in cinemas and then put out for DVD release. Like, just thank you, film gods.
That's sweet. The film gods look down upon the Scooby-Doo fans.
With respect and love.
Except Scrappy-Doo. Fuck him.
Except fuck Scrappy-Doo. So good. Do you have anything to promote? Are you part of anything? Are you like, what do you do? It's also okay if you don't, but just in case you do.
I do. I'm on Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram under the handle RoddersJ04. It's spelt with 2 Ds. I also write reviews and film articles over at thereviewingrodders.co.uk. And I'm a contributor at flyfidelity.co.uk. And so, yeah, if you want to see me muse about films and explain why I loved something or why I thought something was shit, go check it out.
Yay! That's cool. So do you tend to work on new releases or do you go through old movies as well?
I've mainly been doing new releases, but I'm trying to prop up the films which from the past which maybe haven't gotten a fair shout.
That's cool.
Like one of my favourites I've watched not that long ago was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
Oh yeah.
Which Can't get a DVD release over here, but the Horror Channel can show it for some reason. But it's a great film and very worth checking out.
Oh, the movie?
Yeah, the one with Jada Pinkett and Thomas Hayden Church and Billy Zane. Billy Zane's fantastic in that.
Oh my god. I only really know him from like Titanic, is that him?
That's him. He wears a wig in that.
Really?
Yeah, it does not look like it, but
No.
he's always, maybe not always, but he's regularly bald.
That's crazy. Because he's not bald in Back to the Future 1 and 2. Which was
Is he
his...
not?
Yeah. He's
my
one
God.
of Biff's gang. It's like his first movie ever. Next time you watch it, check out the 3 of Biff's gang. One of them is Billy Zane. Crazy.
I'll keep an eye out which one looks like a cool dude.
Yeah. Literally it does. Thank you so much. This has just been really fun. I'm sorry for anyone that wanted like deep insights on the Scooby Doo movie. I love it so much that I can't. I just have to praise it.
Sorry, it wasn't a bit more of a divisive conversation. We could re-record it on Pokemon 2.
Yeah, come back on and do Pokemon 2. I'll do them backward. I've done 3 and then I'll do 2 and then someone will have to come and do 1. God, Pokemon 3 was such a long time ago now. I can't even really remember. I just remember being bored. Is that what I say about it?
Your feelings were pretty much you weren't into the Pokemon as you were growing up, but you did agree but you didn't have a horse in the matter of whether it was better than Digimon, and you didn't like the film or the girl with her magical powers.
Yeah, that was it. Good times.
I might be a bit biased because I grew up with it and I still love it. And
that's fair. I think I remember watching the Digimon movie as well. I've done that. So I've done Pokemon 3 and the Digimon movie. So I'll need to do Pokemon 2. So yeah, come back on and do Pokemon 2.
Thank you very much.
What's
It's
the,
been lovely to be here.
colon for that? Pokemon 2.
Pokemon the movie 2000.
Nice. Nice.
So you can guess when it was released.
1981. Yeah. Yay, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
No, this was great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll see you next time on Why This Film. Bye.
Hello, darling. It's me, Tessianos, host of the ongoing comic book discussion podcast. And if I got a Halloween treat for you. This October, I am hosting a horror comic marathon for 31 days. That's right, my frightful fiends. Every single day from October 1st to October 31st, OCD will review a horror comic to count down to the greatest holiday ever conjured. You can follow OCD on Instagram at OCD Podcast, Facebook at facebook.com/OCD Podcast, and Twitter at Ongoing Comic Pod. It's going to be a hauntingly good time, so be there or just be there. Ooh.
I said check 1 2 1 2 up on my Scooby mic. You never knew a dog on a mic would sound so tight. To my left, to my right. You never knew a dog on a mic would sound so tight. To my left, to my right. Give me Scooby stats and I'll be rapping all night. To my left, to my right. You never knew a dog on a mic would sound so tight. To my left, to my right. Give me Scooby stats and I'll be rapping all night.